All right, what is going on, everybody? Welcome back to another video, another NBA offseason video. In this video, we're going to talk about the Clippers and the long saga of them allegedly, hearsay, allegedly, paying Kawhi Leonard under the table. And there's been a bunch of stuff that's come out recently, and I've tried to stay away from this until there was a resolution. And it doesn't feel like we're going to get a resolution till like the beginning of the season, and that's like still a month out from now. So I do want to talk about it. I do want to update you guys. I do want to give you guys my thoughts on this stuff. So if you like what I've said, like the video. If you have any opinions, comment down below. And if you just like the vibes, consider subscribing. So yeah, everything in this video is alleged. I'm not an investigator. I don't know what's going on. There's a bunch of different arms of different things poking around this whole situation. There's a bunch of theories. I have my own personal theories, but those are just theories. So if by some stroke of luck somebody involved with this is listening, even if it's Steve Ballmer, it's alleged. I don't know what's happening. I don't sue me, please. I don't need that right now. But yeah, so um, to start off, I don't even remember the last time we talked about this, but it was a long time ago. It was a very long time ago. And I've sort of talked about it here and there in other videos when we've talked about the Toronto Raptors because the Clippers traded Kawhi Leonard back to the Raptors. And I sprinkled it here and there. And over the course of the last, I think, like month and a half, I went from, oh, this trade is not happening to, oh, this trade's going to happen. Kawhi's not going to get in trouble. He's just going to have to pay a fine, or Steve Ballmer's going to have to pay a fine, and he's going to be a Toronto Raptor. And I'm going to the season, doing my preseason stuff, thinking about Kawhi Leonard as a Raptor. That's been my thought process over the last definitely half a month. Was it's going to happen. I still think that now, but there's always something damning happening, and there's always something like, oh my god, this is really happening. So the first thing that came out was Pablo Torre, investigative reporter, I guess, and Peabody Award winner, um, releases more information about Kawhi Leonard showing up to another or being involved in another no-show job. And you might just be thinking, oh, why do you have the Jumbotron, the screen on our screen? Why are you showing me this? Because this screen, this whole Halo screen in the Clippers Intuit Dome is made by Daktronics, I believe, right? And allegedly, Kawhi Leonard had a deal with Daktronics somehow, and he got paid because this screen, this Halo screen arena thing got put up in the Intuit Dome. Um, the thing about this is Kawhi technically did show up to do this job because he's on the screen. Haha, right? Funny. But the other thing is, I'm not sure this is going to be included in the rest of the investigations because Daktronics supplies a lot of the NBA arenas. And I don't think the NBA wants to ruin that relationship. That's just my theory. That's my theory. It's just a theory, a game theory. So yeah, there's that part of it. So that comes out, right? And then a couple days later, I think like maybe not even a week later, like 2 3 days later, a report comes out. It was reported by ESPN Sham Sharani, I believe, that the NBA finds no evidence that the Los Angeles Clippers circumvented the salary cap for Kawhi Leonard. That comes out, right? And then it was like, oh, thank God it's over. We don't have to hear about this ever again because this has been going on since the end, even pre-end of the season, I think. Um, and then guess what? It's not actually over. An NBA spokesperson has to come out and say, the NBA spokesperson, Mike Bass, says ESPN's article regarding the Los Angeles Clippers investigation, for which the NBA declined to cooperate, um, contains numerous and significant inaccuracies, and the matter will be made clear once the investigation is concluded. So it's not over. So we thought it was over, and then it wasn't over. Um, your question to me is probably, why is this taking so long, or why can't they just punish Steve Ballmer and Kawhi? Well, Kawhi's been involved in a trade, so if the trade gets nixed, doesn't happen, Brandon Ingram and whoever else has to go back to Toronto, and that's a very awkward situation. And Kawhi has to go back to the Clippers. The thing about Kawhi, though, is the most severe punishment he can get is probably a fine and a season-long suspension. But he could maybe get away from the season-long suspension because of the Players Association. And if the NBA and whoever's involved in this can't find that Kawhi knew about it, then the Players Association could say he didn't know about that. He shouldn't be punished to this level. You know, if he had some knowledge or some involvement, sure, fine him, right? But the Players Association would argue he didn't know, you know, if that's the case. The other thing is that Kawhi truly might not have known because for those who have been in the NBA for the last couple years when Kawhi's been jumping around, or after he left the Raptors, he took a couple I guess like interviews or like presentations from other teams before he landed on the Clippers. One of them was the Lakers, and at the time, it was reported that Kawhi's Uncle Dennis, remember that name, was asking for like very specific and weird things that, and they were very public too. Like they were leaked out to the media. He wanted a private jet whenever they wanted to use it. He wanted some money under the table, this and that. So Kawhi genuinely might not have known about this, and Uncle Dennis could have been pocketing this extra money. So it would not have reflected on Kawhi. It would have reflected on his family. And I think the last year or two, maybe, Uncle Dennis hasn't been involved in Kawhi's career. So the timelines would line up for this stuff. Um, I don't have all the facts in front of me because it's a long like rabbit hole of like, well, this happened and this happened and that happened that. But to my knowledge, that's the best defense that Kawhi has is that he didn't know it was all Uncle Dennis's idea, and Uncle Dennis is gonna get barred from every NBA game for the next like 10 years or something, right? That could be the punishment for him. Now, on the other side of that, Steve Ballmer. I don't think Steve Ballmer was involved in the Stacktronics one. I didn't see anything about that. Steve Ballmer, perhaps maybe there's a lot of evidence suggesting that he was involved in the aspiration tree planting um, thing, right? Foundation, right? And Kawhi was getting paid under the table that way as well. Um, then to go back to my question and what you guys are asking, why isn't the league punishing Steve Ballmer, right? He's just the owner. They can fine him and ban him for a year or two, right? Here's the thing about Steve Ballmer. Steve Ballmer is a freaking billionaire. He's the richest owner in the NBA. And what has come out in recent times is that if the league doesn't give Steve Ballmer a punishment that he would agree to, like he'd be like, okay, I'll do that, Steve Ballmer will sue the NBA. And Steve Ballmer has billions of dollars to do that with. So the NBA doesn't want to give him a severe punishment because he could retaliate in reverse. Um, that's why they're punishing him, and that's what's holding this all up. Is Steve Ballmer is the richest owner in the NBA. Kawhi Leonard might not have known this. It's a long, long list of things of why it's taking so long. Again, this is all alleged hearsay. Um, do I think Kawhi knew anything about this? I think when you factor in the Uncle Dennis piece of this, I don't think. I think maybe Kawhi would have known, but unless you hook him up to a lie detector, he could probably just say, I didn't know. And if that money never hit his bank account and it hit Uncle Dennis's, then Kawhi can just walk away from this virtually unscathed, maybe a little bit of like smearing of his name, but Kawhi never cared about that anyway. And he's allegedly, he's fleeing the country to go to Toronto because he's going to play in Toronto. So if he gets away from this unscathed, he's going to be in a different country anyway. It doesn't affect him at all. Do I think Steve Ballmer played any part in this? Listen, guys, you guys all listen to sports. If you watch this channel, you listen to sports. You watch sports. You're involved in sports. You have a favorite sport. I think we all know. We're all adults here. We all know that players get favors underneath the table. They get these little gifts from other people underneath the table. It happens all the time. This is just the most like publicized it's ever been. And the thing about this is, if Steve Ballmer goes down for this, I think it starts a ripple effect across the league of the NBA looking into other teams that have signed players or players that have taken the discount, and they start looking into that, and it becomes a domino effect of X player, Y player, this team, that team, paying this player underneath the table, and it creates a bunch of overlapping cases of the same thing. We all know as adults, that these players, right? They get this big, right? We'll say like just for time's sake, $100 million contract, right? 2 years. You can pay $50 million for both years, right? The your agent takes maybe 10 million of that, right? Or 10, 8 to 5. Let's go 8 to 10 million, right? And then depending on the state you're in, they take your taxes, they take this, they take that. So at the end of the day, you're really only making like $35 million per year, right? Or $36 million per year. These players, obviously, they're not going to say no to free money. If the owner or somebody related to the team is like, hey, I'll make this up for you on the back end, we'll get you into some investments. That's what they always talk. You always see these players talking about investments. They always get ahead of stuff. They're investing in other sports. Basketball players invest in soccer, invest in women's sports. It's a little bit of like fudging the numbers, fudging the money, and um, I'm not saying this about Kevin Durant, but Kevin Durant is one of those players that is involved heavily in investment, and I believe he's the most modern example of a player using his money that he earned rightfully so, not shadily, but just rightfully so, and putting it back in and making even more money. Same with LeBron James, same with Steph Curry. To varying different degrees of morality because they've invested in some shady things as well. But the origin of their money is fine. There are cases of uh, players funneling money into sketchy things or getting their money on the back end because somebody related to the team or like a super fan, some famous super fan, like I'm not going to name names, but ex super fan in all these movies has investments, pulls the player to the side and is like, hey, I got this thing for you. We're going to invest in condominiums, blah, 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 blah. There's stuff like that that goes on all the time. I say all that to say, and I ramble about that because I don't. I think Steve Ballmer, to be a billionaire, you don't become a billionaire by doing the good thing, by doing the right thing. You become a billionaire because you're good with numbers and you make the right moves. I don't see a reason why Steve Ballmer would be so sloppy in paying somebody like Kawhi Leonard underneath the table. Like, and I understand, like, to a point, like, it wasn't his choice that this story came out. But it's interesting that all the breadcrumbs are there, and it's not leading to anybody. It's just leading into nothingness right now. We don't know who the original like set up guy for this whole operation is, and I just don't know if that's in Steve Ballmer. I don't know Steve Ballmer. I don't know. I don't. He could walk past me on the street. I probably wouldn't recognize him. But he's a billionaire, and billionaires don't get their money the right way when you're a billionaire. When you're a millionaire, yeah, a little bit. When you're a billionaire, I don't know. But yeah, that's the update for that. Some other things that are just floating around in my head. The Intuit Dome is gonna host most of the basketball activities in 2028 for the Olympics. So that has to wrap up. This has to wrap up kind of soon. I'm not saying it's gonna take all the way to 2028 to figure out this whole thing, but like the NBA is gonna need to do something quickly because it's starting to like lag a little bit. And could they? The worst thing that can happen to Steve Ballmer is he gets banned for a year, and he says, "Okay, I'll do that. I'll go away for a year, and then I'll come back in 2027, 2028." Is there anything else about this that I want to say? Not really. I mean, there's some other stuff going on in Los Angeles with the other team in LA, the Lakers, um, that maybe should have the NBA's attention as well because the Lakers have been sold for twice in the same 2 years. That's not great. I feel like the NBA has dragged this on long enough and they should just deal with it. I understand you want to get the right verdict. Adam Silver wants to be, and his team wants to be thorough with their investigation and, get all the information they need. But I think at this point there are more pressing matters than Kawhi Leonard getting a couple $1 million underneath the table in the NBA. And genuinely, I think we're all tired of this. The reaction of when they said this was over, when ESPN reported it was over, was yes, it's over. And then when the NBA came out and said actually that article is false, Everybody was just exhausted. It was like, please, let's just end this. Can we just get on with this story and move on to the next thing? Because if this drags in the next season, oh my god, this is gonna be terrible. It's gonna be so bad. Um, but yeah, I think that's it. Let me check real quick. I did want to mention though. I did want to mention Kawhi Leonard isn't hiding. He's not like gone away somewhere. He's being very active on social media, which is weird for his character, but he's being very active on social media. He's posting workout videos. He's going on a tour of I believe it's China. He's hitting two cities in China for his shoe. So Kawhi isn't like in hiding, like hiding somewhere. Like, oh my god, I hope they don't find out what I did. It feels like Kawhi is very innocent, and that might just be a play on like Kawhi has just never cared. He just plays basketball. He just doesn't care what goes on behind the scenes, or even in the media. But he's just been kicking around. This is the most like chill Kawhi Leonard actively like on social media that I've seen ever. And maybe that raises some eyebrows, but also like again, maybe he didn't know. But yeah, I think that's definitely it. Definitely it. Again, I don't want to talk about this because there are just so many things and so many factors, and there isn't a resolution. I like to talk about things when there's a resolution, or I think I have a resolution, or there's an ending on my end for it. Um, with stuff like this, where it's all these big names and all these things going on, I don't have the law expertise or like the background expertise of like how players get paid and all this stuff to talk about it and talk about it definitively. So this is just me rambling about the situation, and I hope you guys enjoyed it. And let me know what you think about this whole situation down below. Um, do you think Kawhi Leonard will officially be a Raptor in the next month and a half? Do you think Steve Ballmer will be courtside on the first game of the year for the Clippers? Let me know down below. The end screen should be playing right now. Check out the video on the left. Check out the playlist on the right. If you click my little icon right in the bottom middle of the screen, a little subscribe will pop up, and you can subscribe with ease, like and comment as well. And I'll see you guys next time. Cheers.